Hey guys, I just restarted my stream for today, and I've been testing out some setup here. And for today, let's just go back to learning some basics of JavaScript. And right now, I just want to talk about arrays, which is a very useful way for us to store values similar to a variable. However, with an array, we can store multiple values inside of an array. And as we can see here in this example, as I've mentioned, if we have a variable, we can only store the following. So usually we can store values like this, right? We have to declare multiple variables for us to be able to run console and display this on our node environment. So if we try to run this, what would happen? You'd see we are able to display 3 values on our terminal through the use of an array, through the use of a variable, right? And these are different variable keywords that we used in our case. However, if we wanted to go and do the same exact thing, however, we want to, let's say, store values, multiple values inside of a single variable, we can maximize the use of an array instead of just declaring a variable. Okay, so just have that in mind. So let's say, for example, I wanted to have all of these values here. I want to store, let me just use let A is assigned the value of 1, which is, we know that this is a data type, which is an integer. And we want to store a string. Test storing test array case for storing multiple values. And we wanted to have a Boolean data type. Now, we know that these are all different data types. In previous discussions that we've had, we do have what we call data types. Did we talk about data types already? I've been a little bit on hiatus for a while. So you would see here, now if I try to console.log the variable A that we have here, that should be allowing us to display multiple values on our terminal of different data types. So this is going to be very useful. That's the reason why we would want to use arrays. If you wanted to store multiple values into a single variable. Let's say we have let person is assigned the value of man. Sorry, let's have strings here. Man. We'll have to do it this way, similar to woman, and kid, right? So if we wanted to store multiple values, we can try to use the syntax man, woman, and kid this way. And again, as I've mentioned, if we try to console.log this, person 1, we would probably need to run it the same way. Just as another example, let me just comment this also out. You'll have to have person 2, person 3. So let me just comment this out for the meantime, just to not get us confused. So we have man, woman, kid getting displayed on our console if we did not use an array. However, if we wanted to loop through these elements or these values, for example, and that will be a bit difficult if for 3 items, that's okay. However, if we have plenty of items that we want to search through, for example, or look through, for us to be able to find a specific value inside of a variable that we want to reference while we're working on our application's logic, we might want to utilize an array which can hold multiple values. As I mentioned, if we wanted to have this now, console.log person, we want to run this, we now get all of those values. Perhaps we can write some sort of a conditional statement, or let's say we can maximize the use of loops in trying to access each elements of an array that are available for us, that we can try to use depending on what logic in the application that we have, that we want to implement. So that's one use case why we would want to use an array. So one thing to take note of, as I've shown you in our example here, we can see that we can maximize the use of different data types. So let's say I wanted to, let's test this out. Let me just commit this. Perhaps I'll be opening up a new terminal here. I'll have one running on Git, and this one will be running on Node. This is where our examples will be working on. So let's try to go and comment all of this out, just to talk a little bit more. I'm actually, I do have a website from where you can check out most of the replays of my live Twitch discussion. So at least if you want to do some review of the lessons that we have here, you might want to go and check those out. Going back here, let's go and try to have
Let's
some
go and try to
let's go and try to let's go and try to set up some examples here again. So just one note, arrays can have numeric values. So that means the data types can be integers. Like let's say we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, for example. Arrays can store numeric values. And we can also have store data types that are strings. Let's say let's put some names here. Rod, Sid, Josh, and Jenny, for example. So all of this now, if we try to do a console.log, this should be allowing us to view the following, right? We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. By logging the a declaration of a variable that we made, so our identifier is a, we can actually replace that with numeric values. You can also say that this is a string values. You can, those are customized, so you can customize whatever variable declarations that you have that you want to store, from where you want to store, just to make it clear. Because sometimes when I'm learning a new programming language, when I'm watching tutorials, this is something that I really like to observe and look for. What are the custom declarations that us, the programmers, can usually do? So here, in this case, this is a custom declaration. I'm saying custom declaration because we can use any type of naming, or as long as you follow the rules for naming variables. I can call it numeric values in a camel case, or a string values in camel case, rather than just calling it A and B, right? So if we try to run this, this should also produce the same thing. Okay, so this way we can explicitly say, I think explicit means explicit, let me just check that on the dictionary. So there's no doubt or stated clearly. We're explicitly saying that these are array elements that stores numeric values, and these are array elements that stores string data type values. String data types. Okay. So far, what we are currently doing here is what we call an array literal. So let's have syntax just to let me just comment this out. And let's go commit this. We also have what we call the array literals. So you might hear the term array literals, and syntax for that will be, just to have an example, will be const. Let's say we have a const keyword, then we have the customized array name. I'm just using snake case here, but again, as I've mentioned in the previous example that we have on top of here, this is just basically you having custom names that you can use. And then you would want to have the array invocation operators. Did we already talk about operators in our examples before? I think we did have some. But that's one of the operators, so perhaps we can try to further explore. Okay, we do have them here. So we have string operators, and I think we mentioned in our previous discussion that the square bracket is what we call the element access operators, right? So for us to be able to create an array literal, we will be declaring array item 1, array item 2. Sometimes they call this array element or elements of an array. So those are some common words or terms that you might hear when you are working with an array, or when you hear and when you read some forums, you might be able to hear some of those terms. So here we can see that this is what we call an array literal. And one of the common things that you would see when you're declaring some array literals will be with the use of the const keywords, or the constant keyword here. So that's just something that you might want to take note of. And one of the other things that when you're declaring array literals, you will be able to, if we try to, let's say, let's have console log names here, then const names, and we want to have list of names again: James, John, Jose. When you declare arrays, it doesn't have to be in a single line. Okay, that means we can try to arrange this in a much more readable manner, like this. So usually some common ways to make it more readable, rather than, especially if you have so many array items already, right? You might encounter long lines of information that you already have, and that might be difficult to read. So we normally add some spaces so we can span our array declaration here. In our case, we have these names, or let's just call list of names. I think that's much more descriptive, right? Let's call that list of names. And I'm going to use Pascal case in this time. And if we try to console log this, we should be able to get array.js. We get the James, John, Jose. And that will just be similar if we had that in this syntax. If I try to run this should still produce the same result. So let's say, for example, let's try to create a new file. Going to call it array.html here. What example is this already? So this is let's say we would want to have let's have an h1 here. And let me just open this up on my file explorer, and let me open that up on Chrome. So this will have, we'll get to see what will be shown on our browser. Let's add a script tag. Let's call this JsArrays examples. So paragraph 1 with an ID of demo1. Inside of that, let's have a const fruits, and let's give it an empty array. So that means we don't have any elements or any array elements inside of the array element accessory operator, or the array element access operators. And we can then say fruit, we can call this variable. Then we can say that we want to put 0 here and say that we have an apple. Let's say we have a, let's do that a little bit. Let's give this fruits 1, 2, and let's give this a banana, and let's have a cherry here. Then let's go access the document object model. Let's get the element by ID, and let's call on that demo1 and have the property in your HTML manipulate that by assigning it a new value. Currently we don't have any element content inside of that. You would see we don't have any element content in between our demo1 here. So if we try to refresh this, we now see the apple banana cherry being displayed on our browser. So you would see we didn't declare an array literal directly by giving them values or by having some declarations for the array item 1, array item 2, array item 3 directly. But instead, in our HTML document here, what we did, we started by creating a const fruits, and we have the empty array element accessory operator. And we then assigned. So one thing to take note of, array will be zero base index. That's something that we have to take note of when we are using array elements. So let's say, let me just go and add list of names and array.html here, just to push whatever changes that we're doing in our discussion here to the repository from where I stored this value. So let's say we would want to have, let's go get this numeric values here. When I say this is going to be zero index, if we wanted to do the exact same thing here, but instead we want to access the elements of an array that are here in this variable, if we say console.log a and we use node, let me just again full screen this. Sorry, that should be array.js. A is not defined. Oh, sorry, that should not be. It should be numeric values. So you would see node is giving us some exceptions or reference error on our terminal once we make a mistake with calling or logging the variable declaration identifier that we have here. So let's do that one more time. But this time, we want that array.js. And we get to access 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. What if we wanted to access specific elements of an array? So let's go. We know that we have 0. So 2 should be 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means if we try to run this, what are we going to be expecting? If we run this, we should be getting 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So 0 is 2, 1 is 4, 2 is 6, 3 is 8, and 4 is 10. So if we wanted to access arrays, that will be one of the things that you would normally be doing. You utilizing the array element accessory operator, which is the square brackets, and you reference the exact index of the array element in your array literal declaration. So what if, for example, we want to have another demo here. Just want to have another paragraph. Demo 2. And then we want to have some more scripts here. We also have a way to do the exact same thing that we did here. When we want to assign values, right? So perhaps a better assigning a value to an array. If we wanted to assign a value to an array, we can actually do this approach by utilizing the index of the array that we have. Another way to do this will be to use the JavaScript keyword new keyword, or let's just say note. We can use the new keyword to assign values to an array. So we know that we can do that this way. Why are we getting an error? Okay, so that's because we don't have a closing tag for our comment. So if we wanted to use the new keyword, we will have to declare, what can we use here as an example? 3. Instead of doing it this way, we want to have the new 3s. So we have this new keyword, and then we are somewhat creating an array of 3s, so we can pass in, for example, let's try to test this out. Let's say pine tree, coconut tree, and mango tree. Now let's get the document get element by ID demo2 dot inner html assign the value of 3s. Just don't go confuse here. When we use the capital case here, It's like we're creating some sort of an object when we do use the new keyword. We'll talk more about the new keyword as we move forward with some of the examples in our JavaScript examples here. But for now, you would see that what we did here, from where we assigned values to this empty array fruits, and then we called on those, or we assigned the values to our inner HTML that we are referencing through the ID attribute of our element, paragraph element that doesn't have any element content. So that means this is an empty element that doesn't have any element content. We have the opening and we have the opening tag and then the closing tag, and it's empty. That's why I'm referring to it as element content. Anything in between the opening and closing tags are element content, right? And now what would happen if we do this line of code with the use of the new keyword? Let's see what will happen. That didn't seem to work. We have trees, get element by ID. What did we do here? Let's have a line break. Or perhaps we can use array. Sorry. There we go. So we are accessing. So what is this new array? We have to use an array constructor. Okay. So that means we cannot. Let's look at array constructor. Okay, so this is a built-in method in the JavaScript language. So that's why the trees here didn't work, because we actually did not create an object. So you would see this is a built-in method. I'm calling it a method because we are using the function invocation operators that contains the different elements of an array. As you can see here, pine tree, coconut tree, mango tree. So I'm calling it a method because it's like a function that contains, most probably this array constructor may have some sort of a method or function inside of it. If we try to explore further what properties, because it's like an object. What do we get if we try to I'm just thinking, what if we test out, let's say I go put here, because we have this new array here. Let's try to put that same logic. Let me just think for a while. Can we use this same logic on node? Then we want to console.log trees just to see, and we want to type of trees. Why I'm talking about object, or why I'm saying that this array method is a built-in object or built-in method, because this is a constructor in the JavaScript language, and this array constructor is going to be creating an array of objects. Let's see what this will be producing, just to explore, right? Let me just comment this out, just to not. I'm using control plus / to do that, so that you can quickly comment out some of your code with Visual Studio Code. That's a function that you might want to explore. Let's try to run this. So you would see we're getting an object. As I've mentioned, this array constructor will create an object once we try to use it in combination with the new keyword. Okay, just have that in mind. So I hope that is clear how we can try to go and what's this? Perhaps let me move out of that directory. Let's go back here. So that's the first way, or that's the second way on how you can try to assign values to an array. Okay, assigning a value to an array. I think better if we put that into an h2. Okay. So I hope that's clear, guys, how we can try to access an array through the following approach and also assign values to them. So let's have some more examples. What if we wanted to go and change a value? Let's go get this. And let me just uncomment this out. Let's say we want to console.log numeric values of 4. So if we try to node array JS, we get the 10. And if we want to now assign a value to, we know that that's 4, and assign it with a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, with the integer of 12, what are we going to get? Sorry, that should be numeric values. And let's console.log numeric values. What are we going to get here? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have the 4 as the one that we wanted to target. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the element of the array that has that number 10 integer. Let's see what will be displayed now on our... So you would see we were able to assign a different value to that 4th element of the array. Or actually it's the 5th, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If we will be counting normally. But again, take note, arrays are 0 base. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how you count elements of an array if you want to access them. And in this case, we assigned a new value to the 4th element, and you would see what's getting displayed now is no longer 10. In the first console.log, we just wanted to reference the element 4 of the array, and in the declaration of line 73 here, we assigned a new value to that element by giving it a value of 12. So when we console.log it, we now are able to load on our console terminal the new value assigned to that specific element of the array, which is the 4th element. What if we try to do that also here? Can we also do that on our HTML file here? Let's see. This is the problem here. I think much better if we create a new example, because we have some elements that are... Can we do that here? Let's just do some testing. I was just thinking, we want to have that trees, and can we have the pine tree, coconut tree, mango tree. I don't want that mango tree, so I'm going to use 0, 1, 2, 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. So let's replace the mango tree with... Can we reassign a new value? What did we use here? We used let. I think we have to replace this with let if we want to do this. Let's try to test it out first, just to explore. Let's have... I think we'll run into some sort of an error here. What tree would be good? Malunggay tree. Let's see what will happen. It only added 0, 1. That's because I was counting incorrectly, guys. What if we just give it to the 2nd element of an array? So you would see we now have that malunggay tree as the replacement for the mango tree, because we have reassigned a new value to the mango tree element inside of our new array here. So that means we have that malunggay tree now getting displayed, right? What if we try to have a fruits and we reference the second element again? In this case, we are just redeclaring these fruits, right? Or we're targeting the second element. We want to remove that cherry and replace that with grapes. What will happen? Let's just try to explain. Okay, so we were able to reassign a value to that element 2 of the array that we have assigned first through targeting the element number or index number of that specific array. So now we don't see cherry, but instead we're seeing grapes. And as I mentioned, one of the questions that we would want to ask ourselves when we are working with an array is to know what type of what are we going to see here? So you would see it's actually an object. So we'll talk more about that object as we move forward with our JavaScript language exploration. But just have that in mind. So it's not a data type. When we talk about arrays, it's not a data type of itself. It's actually something that we call objects. And this is where object-oriented also can be related to. If you have some background with other programming languages, you might have heard of object-oriented programming. So perhaps we can talk about that once we try to have a session with regards to PHP. If we try to work on creating a PHP project. Let's see. Another use case that I just want to check this or check out. But first, let's start to first. What did we do here? We wanted to. We did assign new values to an array examples. Just push that. Now, the next thing that I would want to do is to try to let's go have some, let me just go work on node here, the runtime environment node first. Let's have a mix data types. I'm going to call this mixed data types because we will be, as I mentioned earlier, we have some examples here that can store different types of data types, right? So let's say I wanted to have an integer, then we have a name, then we have a boolean of false, Then let's console.log.mix data types. What are we going to get in our terminal? So you would see we can have those mixed values for different data types. So you would see this is pretty useful, especially if you're going to be working on levels or level design. If you're planning to build some games, you might want to utilize arrays for setting up some levels, because we can hold different data types inside of an array. So let's just have another example of accessing an element, but in this case let's try to have an example tree here. Demo tree. Bracket for accessing arrays. Brackets. Let's see. Again, that will be array access operators. And as I've mentioned, this will be starting from 0. So let's try to go and have another example here. Spider-Man, Yusuke, Roro, Noah, Zoro. So let's say I want to access document get element by ID, and we're going to reference that demo3 dot inner HTML. Hero. What will be displayed? So we can see Spider-Man, Yusuke, Roro, Noah, Zoro. What if we wanted to replace let's add another element here. Let's say, for example, we have just so at least we'll have more elements. Naruto, Spider-Man, Yusuke, Reno, Zoro. Then let's just go copy this. And then let's target the element 0. What are we going to get? We get Naruto. 1. We get Spider-Man. 2. Again, this is just demonstrating how we can specifically target an element of an array. 3. we get Roro Nova Zoro, right? Can we do this? Can we do some sort of a nesting? Yep, that's possible. So you would see we have the first set of statement. We have document.getElement by ID, demo3. Then we're using this is the document object model. We're accessing using the property accessory operator. We're getting a method, which is a built-in function inside of JavaScript, the JavaScript language. And then we have the ID demo3, which is up here, that contains an empty element, an empty paragraph element that doesn't have an element content. And then we're using the dot inner HTML property. I think this is a property. Yep, it's a property. As you can see, if you hover on top of it, here, this is a method. As you can see, the IntelliSense of Visual Studio Code is using terms like method, property. So we know that this is a string property, and we are assigning the value of favorite 3 here, which is we know 0, 1, 2, 3. And if we try to target 0 here, what will be displayed? Let's say we're getting 0 Superman. Let's first try to... Let's go have a demo for here. Just so at least it will be much easier to see the different elements of an array. So we have Naruto, Spider-Man, Yusuke, Roronoa, Zoro. We have Superman. And if we try to redeclare this down here and we go back to document, we should now get Superman as the new value. Let's have demo 5. Let's just to see that. And again, why is this happening? Because each lines that we write are actually instructions that we're telling the browser on how we would want to access the different elements. So the first demo 3 here, we gave it an instruction to reference demo 3 paragraph, change its element content to whatever values that we have inside of our element. So we have favorite hero, which is the variable from where we stored our element. We're referencing that, and that's why we're able to display on the browser the different elements of an array that we have here. And then we have our document get element by ID demo 4 that now is targeting that 0 element, which is Naruto. You would see we have Superman now being displayed because we reassigned a new string value to that favorite hero variable that we have that contain the different elements of an array. And then we call this document get element by ID again, which contains the demo 5, which is targeting the third paragraph that we have. And we have that inner HTML, and then the favorite hero is now replaced with the value of Superman that we know was Naruto in our first array literal declaration. So we now have Superman, Spider-Man, Yusuke, Roronoa, Zoro being displayed on our browser. So now, another thing that we would want to explore here would be what if we wanted to access an element with an index that does not exist. So we know we have 0, 1, 2, right? In this example. And let's say we have mixed data types. Let's go mixed data types, and let's console.log the mixed data types one more time. Then let's go and use the array accessory operator. What are we going to get? So we know that we don't have a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 element, right? We only have 3 or 3 elements in our array. What are we going to get here? So you would see we are getting that undefined value. Because if there's no value given, let's say we have let A, what are we going to get? We console.log A. It doesn't, we only declared a variable, but we did not initialize it with a new value. So what are we going to get from here? So you're seeing that in our first console log, we should get an undefined. We should get the list of mixed data types. We should get the value of undefined, right? So that's the things that we get to see here. So we basically get an undefined once we don't have any value assigned to an element that we're trying to access of an array, or an element of an array that we're trying to access, which is out of bounds from our index, or from the index that we have in our numeric values, or in our, different elements of an array, not just numeric values, because these are mixed data types. I was referring to this, right? So and we can try to also do some ways to programmatically determine number of elements in an array, and we can use a special property for that. So let's say we go and do console.log mixed data types dot length. What are we going to get on the console? Just go back here. You would see we get 3. 0, 1, 2. So you may be wondering, you mentioned that this should be 0 base. Basically, when we're doing this, it will be giving us the actual number of elements, which we all know are 3. So if we try to add another one here, let's say then let's set to, that will now be 4, because we know that we have added another element, and that's the actual number. It's not referring to the dot length property is allowing us to use it gets or sets the length of the array. This is a number 1 higher than the highest index in the array. Okay, so that means number 1 higher. So you're plus 1. You're saying plus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So plus 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So that's going to be 4 elements inside of the array. And this is going to be very useful, especially when we try to go and loop through elements of an array. When we talk about loops, the concept of looping, the dot length can help us out in trying to identify how many elements of an array exist. So let's have another example. I just wanted to show you that. So let me just add that as an example. So let's try to go and right now in our example here, just copy this. We wanted to, there are special methods that we can actually use. But let's first start to work on some more examples on the node runtime environment. So let's say we wanted to create a new element of an array. What can we try to let's have a declaration. Let's have let. Perhaps we can comment this out for the meantime. So that we'll have only this set of examples here. Let's say base 10. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And then let's try to have let's target the base 10. Then let's say we would want to test having, let's say we want let's say we want to have 10 here, and then we want to go and have this value of 50. What are we going to get if we have that, right? Let's see what will happen. Then let's also console.log the base 10.length, and then let's try to have this node array.js. So you would see it's showing us the different values from the different numbers in the elements of the array. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And we have 5 empty items that it's showing us. So that means we have 5 empty items. And we have that 50 as the, I think this is going to be the 10th value for the 11th element of the array, because basically we assigned it to the number 10. So supposedly 10, 20, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If we have 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, let's give this a 500 or 100 perhaps, just to see what will be able to display. So we get that 100, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's us targeting the base 10, or let's just say the element 10, 10th element in the array. And that's why we're able to see that we have, or sorry, that's going to be the 11th. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th. I think what we're doing here, we have 10th. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, that's the 10th. And we're getting based on the dot length property, we're getting 11 elements in the array. We have 5 empty elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we have another 5, and then we have that 10. 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Okay. So that's just something that you might want to explore on when you're working with a array. And let's say, what if we wanted to so just have that in mind. And one question might be the idea of what is getting printed out in the values of the array, right? We have 4 or we have 5 empty elements, and then we have the 10th element of the array as the one that is targeted when we use this syntax on line 93. So basically, this is not really safe if you wanted to go and insert new values to the elements of an array. So what we do is we can try to maximize the use of some built-in functions that we can try to use for accomplishing this. And if, for example, we wanted to add some value to the end of the array, let's say no matter how many elements are currently in the array, we can use the push method. So let's say, for example, let me just control C this and control KC. Then let's have let's go and try to target base 10 dot push 100. What are we going to get if we try to run this now? So we get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements. And we're getting that 6 elements in the end of the existing of the array. And if we wanted to remove an element, we can also use the pop method. So let's say I wanted to base 10 dot pop. And let's just do that once first. So we can see that we get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And if we try to do that one by one, you'll see we're removing elements from the end of the array one by one. So now we only have 4. We add another one. We now only have 3. We add another one. We now only have 2. and we add another one, we now only have one element in the array. So that's the use of the pop method. It will be removing the element of the array. So just have that in mind. That's it for today's session. And as you can see here, those are some techniques that you can try to utilize an array for. And I hope you got some ideas here on how to utilize an array. Perhaps we can talk a little bit more about arrays as we move forward with some more topics about JavaScript. But for now, that's it. And I think that's a good way to get your feet wet on how to utilize arrays in JavaScript. We maximize the use of the push method. We learned how to access each element of an array. We can also modify elements of an array. Those are things that we did in this demonstration. As you can see here, we were able to manipulate different elements of an array. And these are going to be very useful in some use cases in programming with the use of the JavaScript language. So we'll talk more about how we can try to use arrays to store values, like we can actually hold objects inside of an array and even functions. So those are a little bit of advanced concepts, but we can try to cover some of those discussions just to further explore how to utilize the concept of an array in JavaScript. So that's it. Thank you, and see you on our next lesson.